inviting people into a space where we're going to hold this story.
Love that. Did you know a lot of the riders were actually women wearing beards?
Yes.
Which gives me such like Monty Python vibes. It's amazing.
Oh. What if Muppets did the Easter story?
If that's all we're looking for, that's what we're going to find. Yeah.
I'm looking for pie. Welcome to the paint palette of live streams and podcasts. There is a hodgepodge of colours, some dried up, some freshly squeezed from the tube, and others are just the right texture, shade and tone. All are ready for a dab of creativity. So let's retrieve our brushes and try not to get any on our clothes and carpet. This is another episode of Faith and Geekery, and my name is Mark. And this is
Tom.
Tom, welcome.
Oh, good to be back. Good to be back. Been a little
How are
while
you
since I've been here. So,
how are you doing? You're right.
Yeah. Busy, being busy, which is why I've not been able to be sat in the chair with you guys as frequently as has been known. But it's good to be back with a Tuesday evening free in the diary to be able to join you this evening. How about you? How have you been?
All right. A little bit stressed in the last couple of weeks as well, but going to see the doctor about it, so I'm sure it'll all be fine. But other than that, all is well. I was at a conference last week, which is why I wasn't around. And so, yeah, we've been, a little bit busy here and there. So, what geekiness have you been up to?
Oh, wow. Now, some of it probably I won't say too much about because we're going to come on to that later in our conversation. I know, which has been my main geekiness recently. It's all I've had time to do. But I do like to say that I'm a bit geeky when it comes to reading and things. So I recently completely finished the Dr. Ruth Galloway detective novel series set in Norfolk, where I currently live. So I've worked my way through that whole series since we moved here, and finally finished the last one just the other day. Since which I have gone back to reading some Donna Leon books set in Venice, and read read the very first one of those, which I hadn't read before, because I'm not really reading those in order. I'm just reading them when I get a chance, because they can dip in and dip out. So that's kind of my geekiness, other than the other stuff that we'll talk about later. How about you?
I have been rewatching Doctor Who, especially the Jodie Whittaker era. I feel as if, I was trying to work out whether I was being a bit too harsh and critical on the Chris Chibnall era, and so far I'm kind of I've just completed one of the series, and I don't feel as if I have been that harsh. Do you know what I mean? No, I feel as if I'm not going. Yeah, they're not. They just don't seem to weigh up for me. But I've still been watching them though. They're okay. I just feel that the potential of Jodie Whittaker's Doctor had so much potential that it just felt a little bit let down by the writing. But that's my personal view.
Fair enough.
Please feel free to comment or otherwise. And yes, I've also been looking after my chicks, which are kind of 5 weeks old right now, and they are very loud, very messy, and still currently indoors. And so I can't wait until next week or in a couple of weeks to kind of get them outside and getting them enjoying the summer, the spring and eventually summer. And I've also just been dabbling with some designs of 3D prints or making sure things are the right size and scale for some potential cosplay, but not for me this time. So yes, that's maybe for somebody else, but that is a bit of a surprise. And that's the other thing, is that there's a couple of bits and pieces that are in the pipeline that I'm doing. So I'm doing some oil painting for a family but I want to keep that a surprise as well. And you just never know who is listening, watching.
No,
so
quite.
I'm keeping that under wraps for now, and I'd shared enough of what I could share for now, and otherwise. And folks, if you are listening, watching, just feel free to get in touch with us either live as a comment, or you can join us on the Discord and comment there, and we'll eventually get around to it, or you'll eventually come around in the comments or otherwise, and we can share them as and when we like. So
you mentioning 3D printing reminds me, I don't actually know whether I've said on here that I have myself a 3D printer. That's it's FDM, it's not resin, it's plastic. I got it second-hand, pre-owned, pre-loved by one of the guys who's part of the same gaming group as me here in Norwich. He'd upgraded to one. He was very enthusiastic about this one, saying that it was good. He'd 3D printed a couple of extra little bits for it, so that it's got a couple of little upgrades and things. So I got it for a very good cost. Haven't used it yet. Have not had the chance or the time to actually get it hooked up to the laptop and actually get it printing stuff. He did give me some FDM to go with it, so it's ready to roll once I've got it set up. But looking forward to being able to do bits and pieces on that. And I guess at this point I can say, if there is any kind of faith and geekery printing that needs doing for cosplays and things, even if cosplay is not my thing, I may be able to get some stuff done for you if you need it done. So,
oh, bless you. Well, I think get yourself started first, because I just find it a bit of a ride, really. That it's whatever hobby that you have bought the thing for, the 3D printer becomes a hobby in itself as well. But
I'm very aware of that.
but I kind of enjoy it, and at the moment I've got a bit of a pause, because my kind of utility room or extra utility room where my printer is, that is also where the chicks are, and so I don't want to disturb the chicks at the moment. So this is it. It's all part of my plan and time scale to kind of release the chicks outside into the safety of a nice new pen, and then I can resume doing the 3D printing stuff. But for now, just been working on the software of splicing different models and trying to get them all to fit on the bed, and whether I'm being too ambitious to try and do a cosplay part in fewer pieces rather than lots. And so I feel as if I might kind of regret trying to do 2 pieces in one that cover the whole bed, all that kind of stuff. So we'll see. What could go wrong?
Just all of it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So folks, if you've been up to anything geeky, then please do kind of share it in the comments, or just say hello. We don't bite and we don't mind. Are we ready to go on to the news?
Let's do it.
This is the Faith and Geekery News, broadcast to your home and around the world.
I'm a little bit out of practice. I nearly said going straight to the quiz. So we have geeky news tonight. We've got a few bits and pieces. So some of the new things coming up. There is the new season of Vox Machina coming to Prime on the June the 3rd. We also have Ted Lasso coming to Apple TV, I think just next month. And there's also a bit of a reprise of, is it Wile E. Coyote versus the Acme Corporation film? Was kind of, I don't know, the story was that it was kind of shelved and kind of, dare I say, kind of, insurance paid out on a flop that was not used, and then kind of maybe Warner Brothers had changed hands, I can't remember, or something has occurred for them to then go, actually, you know what, we're going to bring it out. And so, that'll be really interesting to see, especially if it has already been shelved in order to be brought back. So I'm intrigued, and I just wonder if it will be a good thing and worth the kind of the bringing it out, or whether it's going to be just exactly what it that the concern is proven. So we'll see on how that goes. There's also Lego series coming out. I think the 1st of May. I think I'd queried this a while back. I'd heard some whispers, and so this is official now that we've got this new set. Which for podcast viewers, there's kind of there's like a chocolatier, there's a footballer, there's a princess and unicorn ninja, there is a bubble tea mascot, there is some sort of I want to say kind of steampunk cowboy with a flame thrower gun machete thing, a dinosaur space costume perhaps, a mermaid perhaps, and a band's person blowing a big
tuba.
Tuba, that's the one, and some sort of weird slime oozy monster, and a fairy godmother, and maybe a red something or other as well. So there's lots of little Lego coming up, which I always like. There's always a couple of that in there where I actually go, oh yes, if I could get that one, that'd be nice. If I can get the other one, that'd be good. Also in the news, we have Sarah Cox to replace Scott Mills on BBC Radio 2. I think that's been doing the rounds a bit, so I hope that's not completely new to folks. As well as Disney Animation has reanimated key musical sequences for American Sign Language, and it's been really fascinating because there's been no AI, and they've been using live signers, and so I think that's really good to how they've done it, kind of moment for moment, exact kind of actions of the signers. So I think it looks really good, and I was just like, wow, that's really, really encouraging. It's I know it takes a lot of budget and time to do these sort of things, and so it's just a shame that it's not just the sequences, not just kind of the key scenes, but I think we're heading in the right direction, and I think that's quite exciting, really. And I think that is the end of
this is the Faith in Geekery news, broadcast to your home and around the world.
I should have said, is there anything that you wanted to comment about the news? But if not,
no, I mean, some interesting things over there. Yeah, the Wile E. Coyote, the Coyote versus Acme thing is a very interesting one in terms of very odd production history, shall we put it like that? And you're right, it'll be interesting to see how that works out. The Lego minifigures one is an interesting one. It's one of the things in Lego that actually doesn't interest me.
Okay.
Well, I suspect it's not that it doesn't interest me. I find them cool. I've regularly, all my main house keys and car keys all have Lego minifigure key rings on that, and things. But I think it's more the being aware of my completionist nature, and therefore I don't want to get into collecting minifigures, because if I do, I just know that it's going to be another thing that just takes over my head in terms of I've got most of them. How do I get those last two that need to complete the collection? And therefore I kind of just like, no, it's fine. I don't want any of them, because the moment I start having a few of them, I'm going to want all of them. And I already have enough things like that I really don't need another thing.
Yeah. I think I tend to dabble. I mean, it was much easier when we lived in Leeds and the Lego shop was just down the road. So that was easier. And especially kind of taking younger children into the Lego shop and kind of going, oh, let's get a minifigure rather than, spend 15 quid or 20 quid or however many quid on a bigger set just for usual kind of, stuff. But I've got to say, the D&D series, I actually did get one of every single one of them. Yeah. And I'm very glad of the minifig scanner apps and things like that, where you can do the code on the back, and therefore... interesting development. That's one thing I have watched with interest, in the sense of, started off in plastic bags. Everybody said, well, we can feel the bags, so plastic bags aren't a good thing, so we get rid of I don't blame Lego for getting rid of the plastic bags, bringing boxes. Of course, then you can't figure out what's in them, so then you get a whole big backlash, and you get stories, at least how apocryphal they are, of boxes ripped into in stores and things, because people only want to be able to get hold of the ones they want to get hold of, in particular the ones that are rarer and therefore worth more money on the second-hand market.
So what do? They introduce codes and scanners so that actually there's nothing secret about them whatsoever. And it's like, well, why? At which point, why not just put on the box what's inside it?
Well, I think the scanner thing is for those who are wanting the mystery, they can continue to have that mystery. But for those who are kind of wanting, because I think I think for me, I mean, I was one of the people who would feel the packets to see, but I would happily get new ones, but I wouldn't really want duplicates. And so that would be the main reason why. And that I wouldn't mind getting a different one, even if it isn't one I've wanted. But duplicates just wind me up. That why would I want ones of the same? And that pays into their anyway. But so I think I quite like that kind of balance of actually for those who are determined, they will find out, and that might actually benefit Lego for wanting people, for the completionists, to get the full set. Whereas for others, it's just a bit of a mystery packet, just like a lot of all these other kind of brand bits and pieces of these mystery packets here and there and otherwise. Whether we actually need the mystery stuff is another matter, but that might be going down a slightly dubious avenue on a live stream like this.
Absolutely. We don't need to go any further down that rabbit hole.
No. Anything else, or shall we move on to the quiz?
I mean, I've always liked Sarah Cox as a DJ, so if they were going to replace the outgoing breakfast show host, then Sarah Cox would have been my choice. I always felt she probably should have got it when Zoe Ball got it.
Ditto.
So the fact that she's now getting it, I think I'm all for that. So
definitely. Me too. That's cool. Well, if pens or paper or whatever format that you are using is at the ready, we are going to move on to the quiz.
I got questions. The quiz.
So this is the quiz for Tuesday, the 28th of April, 2026, and that is going to be relevant to a couple of these questions in particular. So question number one, if we are ready, to celebrate Terry Pratchett Day, as he was born on this day in 1948, well, the question is, what was his last official Discworld novel? What was his last official Discworld novel, though technically it was published 6 months after he passed away? I'm going to give you some multiple choice answers if that's of help.
Or I've already know it.
Okay, fair enough then. Well, for the sake of others,
other people though, that's fine.
Was it A, The Long Earth, B, The Shepherd's Crown, C, Raising Steam, or D, The World of Pooh? So was it A, The Long Earth, B, The Shepherd's Crown, C, Raising Steam, and D, The World of Pooh? So that's those ones for you. Question number two. It is also, and I've got to be careful here, it is also National BSL Day today. And apologies for those on the podcast. I will try to describe without giving anything away. I'm going to do some BSL and you're going to have to guess what it is, but I'm going to also try and describe it for you as well. So the first, there should be 5 kind of letters that will make up a word, and we'll see how we go. So first is brushing the palm. The second is the index finger on my little finger. Then the third one is pinching my index finger like that. The next one is also that one. Oops, I'm doing it on the camera. Can't do it the other way around. And then the last one is the hold on 1 second, it's really nice. Is then pointing my index finger to the perlicue of that little bit of skin in between the index finger and my thumb. And so I'll do those again a little bit quicker, hopefully, in front of the camera. So that's better. Swipe. So there we go. And folks on the podcast, you'll hear the answer in a second. Question number 3. In Warhammer 40,000, and already at this point in the question, it is out of my depth, orcs originate from what biological source? In Warhammer 40,000, orcs originate from what biological source? I'm sure Tom already knows, but for those who want a multiple choice answer, is it A, mucus, B, fungus, C, elves, or D, underworld corpses? So that is in Warhammer 40,000, orcs originate from what biological source? Is it A, mucus, B, fungus, C, elves, or D, underworld corpses? Question number 4. What is the collective noun for hippopotami or hippopotamuses? I can never remember which way around you do that. And again, I'll give you a multiple choice. Is it A, wedge, B, a rumpus, C, a bloat, or D, a siege? So that is the question 4. What is the collective noun for hippopotami? Is it A, a wedge, B, a rumpus, C, a bloat, or D, a siege? And finally, question number 5. On Sunday, the 26th of April, the Sunday that's just gone, what annual contest took place in the Belgian coastal town of De Panne with over 70 contestants from 15 countries, out of whom many dressed up? So on the Sunday, the 26th of April, what annual contest took place in the Belgian coastal town of De Panne with over 70 contestants from 15 countries, many of which dressed up? I was going to go down a London Marathon route, and I thought, no, why don't we go for something a bit more random and a bit more quirky, if that helps. If that's of help. Do you think you're sorted, Tom?
Yeah, well, yeah, go on. I think I'm confident on some of them, very much not so much on some of the others.
That's really good. And folks, please let us know your scores in the comments or in the community. So question number 1, to celebrate Terry Pratchett Day, what was his last official Discworld novel? Tom, do you know what that one?
I was The Shepherd's Crown.
It is The Shepherd's Crown, indeed it is. The Long Earth was later, but it was not a Discworld novel. And The World of Pooh, I thought was a fascinating one. I've never come across that one, but that wasn't the latest either. But it's like the children's book for Sam Vimes' kid. 2, it is National BSL Day today, and I gave you some kind of sign. Tom, did you know what the word was?
I didn't, but I took a guess working kind of logically. I think you were signing the word happy, but correct. I may be wrong. There we go.
Yeah. So kind of a brush of the palm is a H, obviously APPY. And I did wonder about putting the 2 P's together, whether that would kind of ease things or not. But for those who completely oblivious, I thought it would be just a nice one for those. So question number 3, in Warhammer 40,000, please do correct me, orcs originate from what biological source?
Fungus.
Correct. I kind of went down a bit of a cul-de-sac by looking at other places. So the I can't remember which one's the elves. Is that the Lord of the Rings? But then also the underworld corpses is from Beowulf. And that is the Orkneys, and it's actually technically they don't know the origin exactly, but it's the Orcus means underworld and Neus means corpses. So that's where Beowulf kind of gets its origins from that of orcs. And so I was like, I was intrigued by that. So wasted a few minutes. What is the collective noun of hippopotami?
Now, I don't know. I do not know this. I did take a guess. I went for the one that I thought was most sensible, and I would love to be wrong, because some of the others would be far better options. I went for a siege of hippopotamuses.
I'm afraid siege is a siege of herons.
Oh, okay.
So the actual answer is a bloat of hippopotami.
See, that is the one I hoped it was, but I just couldn't bring myself to put it. But
Yes.
I was like, no, nobody could have really come up with bloat for hippopotami, but they did. So that's fantastic. I love that.
I did make sure that these were all accurate as well, because a wedge is of flying geese or flying swans,
Yep.
and there is a rumpus is of baboons.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So again, I thought I quite liked some of those that were just kind of nodded on in the right direction for those. But I was quite surprised by Siege of Herons, but I did quite like the idea of a Siege of Hippopotami.
Yeah, exactly.
Likewise, I also like the idea of a wedge-shaped kind of grouping of hippopotami down the Nile, sort of thing, or wherever it might be. So yes, finally on Sunday, the 26th of April, what annual contest took place in the Belgium coastal town of Depan?
What I wrote down was just because it's one of these crazy Red Bull events that they do, whether the karting or the dumping off a whatever it is, off a what do you call the thing that goes out to sea?
A pier,
jumping off. Also, I just thought maybe it was one of those things, but I have no idea.
It was a good guess, but it's the I've got to read it properly. The European Seagull Screechers Championship.
Okay,
so, it's been in the news today. I'd seen it a couple of times, and otherwise, and I think maybe on Radio 2 this morning. And so they annually meet up, and they mimic. They mimic seagulls, and some of them get dressed up as seagulls as well. So you can find that on the BBC News. It's quite fun. It's a bit weird, but it's something for somebody. I'm just surprised though that it's because I was like going, oh yeah, European. How many countries? It was like, wow, 15 countries. Wow, that is actually quite impressive. And a part of me, I was also thinking, is like a championship. Does that mean that there's like quarterfinals and semi-finals and finals? Does that all happen on the same day in that place, or do they have like capital cities around Europe to do that? But yeah, I didn't delve too deep with that.
Probably best not to.
No, indeed not. So that is the quiz. Tom, how did you do?
I got 3 out of 5.
I'm
perfectly happy with.
Yes, no, indeed. So, folks, just if you've taken part in the quiz, do leave a comment to tell us how you did, or be in touch in the Discord community or elsewhere by pigeon or mail. Maybe not. So, folks, without further ado, we're going to kind of move on to the next thing, which is our topic for this evening, which is all things Warhammer. So, Tom, how would you like to start? Would you like to begin with your passion, or how you got into it, or just kind of?
Let's begin at the beginning, shall we? For me, at least. I mean, let's not begin with the whole beginning of Warhammer. I mean, that would be we do lots on that, but no, my beginning. Yeah, my beginning of the beginning of my interest in this. It starts way back. I was youngish kid, and we had family friends who we were living in Shropshire by then, but they were family friends we'd had from when we lived in Staffordshire, and we used to regularly go back across to see them, not far really from kind of edge of Telford over to Stafford area, and we used to go regularly across. And the eldest of their sons, who was probably 4 or 5 years older than me, I think, he had in his room these models, like loads of, and they would have at that point mainly been white metal, metal figures of all kinds, books with all kinds of pictures in, both artwork and pictures of models. He had magazines, which I now know mainly to have been White Dwarf magazines. He was also into 2000 AD. You have to remember, of course, that Warhammer, particularly Warhammer 40,000, but Warhammer Fantasy Battle, etc., was very much part of that ethos of that thing. So if you look at the early rules and things, there's lots of satire going on, lots of kind of poking fun at things. And so It was very much he was of that kind of thing, and I just used to love being in his room and just looking at his models and looking at the pictures and looking at the rule books and the artwork and everything. And it didn't really mean that much to me until I think, other than I really loved it. I loved the environment. I loved the kind of imagery, especially Warhammer 40,000, the grim darkness, and John Blanche artwork, all this kind of stuff. It just really intrigued me, but I never really thought about it being something that I would do. And then Space Crusade came out, which was a collaboration between Games Workshop and MB Games, and Hero Quest came out at the same time, and I got into those were board games. They were playable at home with my parents, who weren't really going to be sitting down to play war games or anything, but we could get it out and we could play, or I could play with friends because it came in a box. And from there, especially with Space Crusade, I didn't really get into Warhammer Fantasy Battles, but I did at that point start getting into Warhammer 40,000. Borrowed the rule book. Well, actually got given the rule book by said family friend. He was going off to university. He was going and doing other things. I got the rule book, started buying models, metal, and by that point there was plastic coming out. And so I got into it with some friends. And then so it became something that I played. And then at the age of 16, I moved to Somerset and kind of stopped, because moving, making new friends, new place, interested in other things, starting to, things like going to the pub and all those kinds of things. I was playing sports for the college and for clubs and things. So I kind of put all that to side, but the imagery stayed with me. So I still had that original Warhammer 40,000, the very first edition, Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader rule book. Still loved the artwork. It was still on my shelf. That artwork stayed with me. I would walk past Games Workshop stores and look in the window at the painted models and things. And that so I kept that interest and that awareness. And I knew that they were releasing new editions, but I didn't particularly play until way later, say 9 years ago now. I moved to Essex, and the local vicar, where I had just moved to be the Methodist minister, put on his Facebook, we'd connected on Facebook following my welcome service, and he put on Facebook that he was playing a game of the latest edition of Warhammer 40,000, which was just 8th edition, had just been released at that point, with his son, and put a picture up, and I like, I used to play that. Maybe we should play a game sometime. So ended up playing a game, and it kind of snowballed from there, because now I was an adult with some disposable income. So it was kind of like, whoa. So yeah, and to start with, it was really about buying the models, getting them built, looking to paint them, but we were just playing as friends, and therefore we didn't mind so much if we were playing with unpainted models. And then because I wanted to play a bit more, I had to play publicly, and certainly if you go and play in tournaments, you have to have painted models. It's part of tournament rules normally, just because publicity shots, if nothing else. It's really not great to be taking publicity shots with unpainted models.
Yeah,
very well,
especially for a shop that is all about painting and community like that.
Exactly.
And I imagine it will also you can easily determine what sort of size is whose.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see whose models and whose and everything. So it helps. So I started doing a bit of painting, but it really wasn't the fun bit. The fun bit, I liked building, because it reminded me of kind of building Airfix models in the past and things. And I liked playing, but more for the social side, not playing it as a strategy game that I was aiming to win, but as a social thing. Yeah. And then I went on sabbatical with the aim of painting up an army that was focused. So Warhammer 40,000 has a faction known as the Sisters of Battle. It's not the faction I normally play, but they just released a whole bunch. They just released it as a plastic faction. It had only ever been available in resin and metal, and then it was suddenly released in plastic, brand new models, everything, and it tied in with my sabbatical, where I was thinking about the hobby and faith interacting. And so I thought, right, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to build a specific Sisters of Battle army, which will be my sabbatical army. And so I started doing that. And then lockdown hit. right in the middle of my sabbatical. So everything else that I planned to do in my sabbatical just stopped. So I was left at home on sabbatical. For those listening that don't know, sabbatical is 3 months that the church very graciously gives us in order to spend time away from our everyday ministry and to look at other parts of faith and life and ministry and recuperate and relax and do all these things. And I'd had other plans as well as doing the Sisters of Battle Army, but I was left basically with not much else to do but sit at home and paint models. And in doing that, I actually found myself growing to enjoying the process of painting the models. And so for quite a bit of time after that, I probably did far more paint, and that was definitely the year that I painted more models than any other year. But I did go for 2 or 3 years after that where really most of my hobbying was building and painting models. It wasn't playing. Since moving to Norwich, it's switched back around again. I've had so little time really to do very much painting at all, but it's been a great way to get to know folk here outside of work, church environment, because I went to the local gaming shop in Norwich, Athena Games, that other game shops are available even in Norfolk, and I went along and they had some little business cards on the desk with Norwich Kill Team Club, and originally I was thinking, well, actually I'll move to playing Kill Team because it's a much smaller game, don't need to have so many models, I can maybe get painted up some teams and get going quickly. And then lo and behold, one of the things that some of them do is they play Warhammer 40,000 in Crusades, which is kind of a campaign mechanic where you kind of start off with a certain number of models, but then you can add, there's mechanics for adding more units to your army, but also upgrading them beyond the norm so you can give them extra abilities. And yeah, I ended up actually, apart from a very small number of Kill Team games, what I've actually done is been playing this campaign almost since Crusades, almost since I got here, kind of October, November time. We play 2 games a month. So it's not hugely taxing. And it's been great. I've got to meet more folk. We've gone out for drinks a couple of times. And it's so it's very much been played. And because it's a crusade, and because it's not a tournament, and because it's relaxed and it's supposed to be, it's not competitive in any sense. Occasionally I have played with unpainted models and things, but nobody's bothered. Clearly, if some people can't bear to put a model on the tabletop if they haven't painted it, that's their thing, and that's absolutely fine, but we don't expect other people to live up to our own standards on that. So it's been great. So that's kind of my brief synopsis of my journey with Warhammer 40,000.
For those people who don't know, is it just kind of like a one player against one player, or is it multiple people in an arena? An arena tabletop sort of style, isn't it? Yeah. So
tabletop. So tabletop is normally about 4 foot by 5 foot nowadays.
So we might have a picture,
So traditionally, historically, the tabletop's been 4 foot by 6 foot. Nowadays, Games Workshop kind of suggest or recommend a tabletop of about 4 foot by 5 foot, just a bit smaller than 4 foot. So it's 44 inches by 60 inches. That's the tabletop. And normally it's 1v1. And what you do is you pick a number of points. Units, models are worth a certain number of points for what they do, and you build your army up to the number of points. So today I was playing a game this afternoon, and we were playing 1,300 points, because that's what my opponent had available to him in his Crusade army, because there were reasons why he's built it up much more slowly than many of us. Normally, certainly if you go to a tournament or an event, then often you're looking at 2,000 points being the standard, although Athena runs tournaments quite regularly just with 1,000 points, just so they're small armies. And it's generally 1v1 on a tabletop in which you put some scenery. Often at the moment, picture for those that are actually watching is a greyish tabletop with a bunch of ruins on it. There's a new edition of Warhammer 40,000 coming, and there's quite a bit of debate because they're going to change some of the terrain rules, which I think a lot of people are looking forward to, because it's become, just because of the terrain rules, it's become quite standard for it always to be fought on tabletops of ruins, whereas actually historically it's been much more varied than that. You know, ruins, alien forests, rocky deserts, all kinds of different things. Nowadays it tends to be. So obviously that's Warhammer 40,000 is a sci-fi version, and it really is fantasy in space. It's not really sci-fi, it's fantasy in space. All the usual fantasy tropes are there, just in a sci-fi setting. So the fantasy version, interesting with the fantasy one. So originally, the fantasy game, which was the oldest of the games, was Warhammer Fantasy Battle. It was really a war game, historical wargaming, but in a fantasy setting. So it was all rank and file. It was all square bases lined up, you know, 2x5, 1x10. Everything swung on a pivot because it was all, you had to keep them in a line, unless you were using individual characters and heroes. And I don't know exactly when, late noughties, mid tens maybe, yeah, early to mid tens. Games Workshop decided that was no longer working for them, for one reason or another. So they basically did they blew up the world that was, almost quite literally, magically blew it up, and created instead the Age of Sigmar, which was much more. So all the models then came on round bases. And it was much more a skirmish battle game, more like Warhammer 40,000 has always been. So Age of Sigmar operates with, generally has less terrain on the table, but then it's a much more melee rather than shooting. So being behind cover and things is less important, apart from maybe one or two armies that have quite a lot of shooting.
And is that why it's gone for the derelict buildings and things, because that is about cover, isn't it? And very definite obstacles in the way, whereas the other ones that you talked about, terrain and forest, I guess there's a little bit more play and flexibility there. Whereas,
the new rules they're looking at introducing, look, they might like solve some of that, because they're going to be terrain footprints that basically, if you're the other side of it from your enemy, then you won't be able to shoot at your opponent and things, because they're either side. No matter what you put on the footprint, the footprint will say, no, this is obscuring, you can't see the other side of this footprint. So it looks like, but it's all, as with any war game, even historic war games, which I don't know a huge amount about, some of it has to be kind of, you want people to be able to be immersed in what they're doing, but at the same time, it's a game, and you have to have mechanics that allow for the game to be relatively fair. You can't, not everything can just be as it would be, because otherwise it doesn't work. So that's where we're at. And sci-fi is very much, I have got some Age of Sigmar models, and I have played it a few times, but it's never really, I think because of that historic thing of what really drew me into playing funny tabletop games with funny miniatures was the grim, dark, original setting of Warhammer 40,000. That's what's grabbed me, and that's what's kept me, having it in my head even when I wasn't involved in the hobby for probably 2 decades. I was still in, and it was that. So the sci-fi is what I do. Warhammer is an interesting thing in terms of the title, because the company is Games Workshop, but they have very recently, as in part lockdown drove their success, they have rebranded so that now almost, while they are Games Workshop PLC, almost all their products, especially Warhammer 40,000, Warhammer Age of Sigmar, is all Warhammer. They barely mention Games Workshop as a name now at all, even to the point where so because there were crossovers and things, the paints and brushes and everything that they sell for doing the painting and things, that's all just recently gone through a rebrand. So they were Citadel, because originally the models were made by a company called Citadel, that became swallowed into Games Workshop, and so the models remained. It became Games Workshop and then Warhammer, but the paint stayed as Citadel paints until very recently, where they've rebranded all the painting range as Warhammer now as well.
Oh, wow.
So Games Workshop really is just this big company in the background that does stuff, but you rarely hear them mentioned now in their own PR stuff. But there is more to it than just Warhammer 40,000. And so the Age of Sigmar thing is interesting because they blew up the old world, created Age of Sigmar, and then very recently they have released a game called Warhammer the Old World, because people were constantly saying, we want to play games in the old world. We want to be able to play rank and file war games, not just kind of hero stuff. So they brought the old world back as Warhammer the Old World. So you can now play kind of effectively a modern version of Warhammer Fantasy Battles again. You can there's Blood Bowl, which is a game based on kind of part American football, part rugby, which is arguably set in the old world, although they've never really defined exactly where it's set. It's fantasy stuff, playing American football stroke rugby, which is good fun. You've got they brought out a game called Underworlds, which is basically a board game, a hex shaped board game. So in the Age of Sigmar universe, but much smaller, very much board based. You don't have to measure movement, you just move hexes and things, and that's done quite well, I think, and that's nice and easy for them because they just release specific teams, a set of 3 to, I think the biggest one is maybe 6 models, and that's your team, and you get specific cards. It's a card mechanic game as well as rolling dice. So, and you just get your pack for them, and then away you go with it. Then in the 40,000 universe, as well as Warhammer 40,000, the big game, you've got Kill Team, which is basically one squad against one squad on a much smaller board. And then you've got Necromunda, which is basically gang warfare in a big bloated hive city. And that's all about campaigning. It's really, you can play one-off games of Necromunda, but it really doesn't work as well.
So can your kind of team or whatever, your battalion or your army, can they transfer across all these different types of things, or would you have specific?
So you'd normally have specific. So again, there's quite an interesting thing here. So normally you can't put anything across it. Well, so they've generally tried to write some rules. So if you play Warhammer Underworlds, which is set in the Age of Sigmar universe, there are rules. So you can take your little team. Say the army that you normally play is vampires. There is a vampire team for Underworlds, and there are rules for using that particular team in Age of Sigmar. They're probably not very good rules. They're not one of the best units in the game, but you can, if you want, play a game of Age of Sigmar with that. Likewise, normally you're playing Kill Team, you're normally using a squad that is based around a unit that you could use in Warhammer 40,000, so you could use the model squads. What you generally can't do is move armies across from the fantasy setting to the sci-fi setting, or vice versa.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The only thing where that's not true is one of the things that binds both Warhammer 40,000 and Age of Sigmar stroke Fantasy Battle is the existence of the Chaos Gods. So the Chaos Gods are Nurgle, who is the god of plagues and such like, Khorne, the god of war, Tzeentch, the god of magic and trickery and deceit, and Slaanesh, the god of excess and perfection. And those 4 gods appear both in Warhammer 40,000 and in the fantasy settings. And they both have, as well as human followers, they also have demonic entities available to them. And those demonic entities do cross over. So if you play, and in fact, it's the few games of Warhammer Age of Sigmar I've played, the most of them that I have played, I've played using Chaos Demon models, because I already had them for Warhammer 40,000. And so I was able to use them across. And yes, I'm a church minister, and yes, I play the baddies in that. Well,
I was going to lead you on to that, but finish this little bit, and then we're going to we'll maybe just give a little bit of lip sync towards the faith element.
So so there is that crossover, and that's it's interesting now because clearly Games Workshop can't work out whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for their profit line. It's becoming that the use of demons, certainly, so the use of demons in Age of Sigmar is very much becoming more bound up in having an army which is for that one god and with that one chaos power, and it's both human and demon, and you kind of use it that way. And in Warhammer 40,000, similarly, they're trying to kind of do, and it's quite clear that they're not comfortable with the fact that somebody can go in and say, you know what, all I'm going to do is I'm going to buy one Chaos Demons army, and I'm going to be able to play both game systems with it. Because clearly from a profit line point of view, that's not good for their profit. So they're clearly uncomfortable with that, but they haven't quite worked out how, but they've so much background and lore to it that they can't completely scrub them out of one or the other. They can't turn around and say, actually, we're no longer going to have demons in one game or the other, or we're going to get rid of one of the chaos powers in one of these games, because they're so embedded in both sets of lore and both kind of environments that they just couldn't do that. It would be really difficult, or it would be painful to do that kind of retcon. So they haven't, but they're trying to work that. They're clearly trying to work something out for their own profit, but in terms of playing, that's
and so we're kind of like nudged a little bit towards kind of faith there, and talking about demons and chaotic gods and things. Are there any observations either for those who are interested, or for you as kind of a mature Christian in how you kind of deal with that sort of stuff, or are you comfortable with fighting?
I'm one of those who's perfectly comfortable, as you go. So I said, and this does tie in. So I said earlier that when I came back to it, you kind of snowball in buying stuff because you think, oh wow, look at that, and I'll find some time to build and paint that eventually, and I now have sprues and boxes of stuff that I bought which I'll never build. And a while ago I needed to find some way of kind of tightening down, and I said, you know what, from now on, no matter what exciting stuff comes out for orcs or for space marines or whatever, I am only playing chaos armies. That's all I'm playing. It still gives me lots of options, more than I probably need, but or my bank manager would like, but it does narrow down my options. I am more than comfortable with that. But one of the things that fascinated me about the early kind of rules in the early books, and what fascinates me about some of the lore that's been written since, is that, actually in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, there are no good guys. Everybody is a bad guy. The Emperor is worshipped as a god, and it's debatable as to whether he is a god or not. He said he was very clear that he wasn't, but he was, he's still going even on his golden throne. Therefore, is he or not? The Sisters of Battle certainly worship him as one, and it seems to work for them. And in fact, the human empire is required to believe that he's a god. Likewise, the orcs. We mentioned the orcs earlier, grown from fungus, but they have their own gods. They have Gork and Mork. And they have this strange belief system where if they believe, enough of them believe it, then it'll be true. So red vehicles really do go faster. They really do go faster. And orcs painted in blue really are sneakier than everybody else. But then you've got the Chaos Gods, who from the very beginning of the story of Warhammer 40,000 really have existed. And they are in the warp. And the problem with long distance space travel is that we use the warp in the Warhammer 40,000 universe to travel long distances, and that means that we have dealt with them and opened ways through into our universe for them. They feed on our emotions, it's the same. So I find that kind of that whole thing fascinating. That, you know, really it's a universe in which there are no good guys, and it does ask questions of faith. The thing that's really spoken to me in terms of my faith actually isn't anything to do with the lore. It's the gaming mechanic, that playing games using dice has taught me about accepting a world in which randomness is part of the build. That I've come to understand it. I'm not arguing that this is, you know, how everybody should see it, but I have come to understand that actually I am perfectly okay with a created world, created universe, created creation that is nonetheless random within it. I have no need of believe in a God who, you know, controls things, because I believe in a God who is loving. And actually, love to me isn't love unless it is without any kind of coercion. And therefore the only universe in which love can actually be acted out is a world in which there is random things happening. Because if there's nothing random, then love isn't love, because it's not random, because it's not that love is random, if you know what I mean. But
like free choice and freedom to absolutely do the random.
And therefore, you know, the kind of, you know, famously Einstein's reaction to Niels Bohr's quantum mechanics, well, God doesn't play dice. Actually, I'm you know, playing war games has made me comfortable to the point of saying, actually, I'm perfectly comfortable with a God who does roll dice. I'm perfectly comfortable with it. Because I genuinely don't think that the good thing, you know, it's not possible to have the excitement like I did a couple of times earlier this afternoon playing against someone. It's not possible to have the excitement of rolling sixes and all the good things that come from rolling sixes, like remarkable saves or miraculous charges or whatever it is, if you don't have the possibility of rolling ones.
Right.
If you don't have the you know, if it's all just fixed, if it's all like, well, then it's, you know, it's not so exciting. Whereas, therefore, I think, you know, if you're going to live in a world that actually has genuine, true love, then we have to live in a world where randomly it's possible for really terrible things to happen. And it's not great to live in. I'm not. But but the highs wouldn't be possible without the lows, and so gaming has taught me that and made me much more comfortable with it, which I think.
No, bless you. Well, thank you, Tom, for sharing a little bit into Warhammer and that world. The thing I would comment on is, so my oldest has suddenly shown some interest in this and already counting his pocket money to see if what things he can afford. But it is interesting going into the shops. We've got Outrider Games just down the road here, and it's just really quite nice feeding the community. And obviously there are margins of profit and things like this where you're kind of going, well, gosh, that's a lot of money for a very small plastic figure. But it's really kind of embedded in sense of community, in sense of reward. Even my daughter, who wasn't interested in, got to paint a mini, and therefore she's got a little booklet now to kind of fulfill the little kind of bits. And so I can kind of get that actually, even without the game mechanics, even with just painting the minis, there's definitely a sense of community there, which actually you don't get in a lot of shops and businesses. And so
absolutely.
So I can kind of recognize that and give kudos to that, really. So we're going to move on to Geeky Gallery, and I think there might be a picture. There you go. I did plan this of my two and Jenny's two, just having fun at the Games Workshop painting minis. And so that's that one. And then there are some pictures from yours, I think.
So that's that's not this game. That's my previous game against some orcs and some unpainted miniatures, because they've just released some new Chaos figures. So I did have to buy those and get them built.
Of course. And these were the ones from today.
Oh, and that's from this afternoon. So so this was me playing up against some Tyranids, big alien-y blobby beasts, which was good fun.
Fantastic. and then there's a couple of my pictures. I was playing Pokemon Labyrinth. So I've never played the Labyrinth game ever before, but you kind of push, you remove a tile and you insert a tile and the whole line of tiles change, and therefore the labyrinth changes, and you had to go around collecting them all the Pokemon with your other Pokemon. So that's fun. And then there's just a few of the chicks which are getting their full feathers, and I think they should be going outside at some point, because they're
Are they a particular breed?
I've forgotten, because my older brother was the one who hatched them, and I've forgotten off the top of my head what they are. But yes, this is going to be a difference, because I'm used to having silkies, and these are some other ones beginning with B, but I can't remember. So so we'll see how they adapt and otherwise. And I think that is the end of Geeky Gallery. And we have just met the 1 hour mark. And so what I will say, folks, is, if you've been tuning in or listening in on podcast, live stream, or wherever you find us, just a reminder that there is a Discord group. You can use the QR code up here, or there's the link to our Discord community in the description, wherever you should find us. And so I hope that they can continue the conversation, whether it's about Warhammer, 3D printers, or something else altogether. It's entirely up to you, but it's hopefully a warm, affirming community that can kind of just talk about the ups and downs of rolling 1s and 6s and everything in between, and sharing things for the Geeky Gallery, the news, or just having a good old conversation about where things are hitting you this week and what that means. So bless you. Thank you, Tom, for joining us tonight. And
good to be with you.
Next week we have a guest, but I don't know the guest, so that's a mystery. Tune in to find out. I'm not going to be around for a couple of weeks, and then we'll also have our Epoch campaign continuing, and and this coming week we're having a bit of the core team are having a bit of a get together to talk about vision and direction and stuff. So if there are any comments that you want to say, I'll kind of create a little bit of a corner in the Discord for you to share any comments or otherwise. But keep it above board, please. So thank you, folks, for tuning in, for whether you're catching up or otherwise. And geek safe. Bye-bye.